Hello, everybody. Welcome into another episode of Pucks and Prosecco. I'm Meghan Angley, joined by Chloe Theil, and we are here for another episode of Pucks and Prosecco Investigates. I'm only half kidding, but it does feel like a true crime podcast right now, investigating the crime of a season it has been for the Colorado Avalanche and trying to figure out how we got to this point, and we're still trying to figure out the end of this one.
That could be such a fun episode, though, to start from the very beginning and
True crime
talk
this
about the
season.
entire timeline that led all the way up until where we are now. Maybe whenever they finish the season, then we should go back and relive the entire season again.
And
that
relive
might be
it all
traumatic,
again.
though. I don't know. I
And
might get
relive the
traumatized by that.
nightmare all over again.
Yeah.
We can reflect on the hope that we felt when we saw Gabriel Landeskog at morning skate consecutively.
Yes.
And it's February 25th, and he hasn't taken place in a full practice
and
yet.
all of the injuries that took place at the beginning of the season, and
they just got to survive it.
Yeah, and every single AHL player getting their NHL debut.
8 NHL debuts this season. I think we were up to 42 different players have skated in an Avs uniform this year. It has particularly affected the forward group, but I think it's pretty obvious the way in which the depth has been hit on this team in a way that I don't think the front office planned or could have even possibly planned on, to be honest with you. Like, they loaded up on depth in different ways. You know, they bring in a Parker Kelly, they extend Kiviranta for one more year. Those were players that we were looking at as like 13th, 14th forwards on the season. That wasn't the expectation that they would be full-time NHL players. We certainly weren't expecting Nikita Proshepov to make his NHL debut just months after being drafted in the 7th round. It's incredibly exciting for the young man, but that just points to so many things not going according to plan. But I do want to talk about both sides of it because there are some serious problems on this Avs team this year. But I also don't want to neglect some of the high points of the year as well, that you can hang some optimism around. And somewhere in the middle, we can decide how we feel about it all. Are the Avs cooked? Are they dead in the water? Or is there hope for this team? All right, let's look at where they're at right now. They're on the doorstep of Game 60 against New Jersey tomorrow with just 23 games left to go. They're 4 points back of Minnesota for that third place spot in the Central. They're in the top wild card spot, 8 points back of Dallas. Jets are far and away ahead of them. Everyone has games in hand except for the Avs. The Avs have played more games in the season through this point than we're used to seeing. So I think the schedule has been a little bit heavier up front for this Avs group. Over the last 10 games, they were 22nd in the league in goals for. We're going to dig into this more, but they have not been coming up with goals the way that this team usually does. They're 33, 24, and 2 on the whole of the season, 14, 9, and 2 in their last 25, 5, 5, and 0 in their last 10. I key in on the last 20 games because it's about January onward as a point to evaluate the year. And at that point and through now, it just feels like they're still obviously battling uncertainty with Landeskog. Even Nichushkin, who we went to practice together today, and we learned that Val Nichushkin is an option for tomorrow against New Jersey. Bednar was pretty coy about confirming it, but I got the sense that it's more of a lineup strategy type decision, as not to reveal his hand too closely because he was grinning when he said it. So
yeah,
I'm feeling confident, especially seeing Nichushkin take part in the whole practice today. I'm feeling confident he'll shed that red jersey finally and be a real option for the Avs tomorrow.
I really hope that he will be an option for tomorrow. But with him coming back into the lineup, who do you think gets moved around?
It's really interesting. I know that I would want to see potentially a Miles Wood maybe take the night off. Casey Middlestat maybe take the night off. It hurts though, like they're still not full enough, especially up top, and Nichushkin being injected in the top 6 is great, but you don't Juuso Parssinen probably moves down in the lineup. You still want to keep Casey Middlestat probably in the middle. Jared Bednar will play his full availability in a little bit. He talked about how they're pretty full down the middle when asked specifically about moving like a Ross Colton to the center spot. And so I just don't see them yeeting Casey Middlestat out of the lineup because I think they need the center depth right now.
Yeah.
I do think that's something they'll plan to address around the deadline more so, but I just don't know that they have a lot of options that they feel great about at the moment. But Ross Colton's an intriguing player too, that I could see them in the same way that Jonathan Drouin, when he first got to Colorado, his first 10 games or so were not very good.
Yeah.
And he was a healthy scratch at some points, and they shipped Tomas Tatar out. It felt a little nerve-wracking, like Jonathan Drouin was next to go, but being scratched motivated him, and he just dug in a little bit deeper. So maybe they do the same with a Ross Colton, whose game has really struggled as of late. This is a player that you could rely on for more consistent production than we've seen so far.
And especially when you take a look at Ross Colton and what he was doing at the beginning of the season, I think, that was something that maybe the front office was paying attention to and thinking, okay, well, depth may not be our problem right now because we have goal scorers like a Ross Colton that kind of fill that up. But now that we've come down to the line here and Ross Colton maybe isn't doing exactly what he needs to be doing, then they're kind of in a time crunch for what moves they're going to make.
It is certainly a time crunch with just less than 2 weeks before the deadline. And as we all know, a lot of things start moving and shaking in advance of the deadline because potential targets and people that you were interested in get moved sooner. And so you have to pivot as a front office and reevaluate what's still on the table for you. So I think that 11 days short of that is when you start to really keep an eye on your phones to see if there's any new information coming in. Is there anybody you could easily pluck out of the lineup with Nichushkin coming back in?
No, there's not anyone really that I would pluck out of the lineup. I mean, I think the only person I would say for that would be Casey Middlestat. I think that would be good to see kind of how he would react to being taken out of the lineup. But I would love to see Val and Netches play together on a line. I think that would be so exciting to see.
Future Val's pals.
Yes.
They haven't gotten a chance to become pals, and I think it is important for their friendship for them to start playing together.
It's all about friendship.
It's all about friendship, actually, though. Nathan MacKinnon returns from the Four Nations tournament, and getting to win together with your friends probably has to be pretty invigorating.
Yep.
But he did seem revitalized coming back from Four Nations, and he gets to play with some of the best athletes in the world. And I think there's something, like the Venn diagram of people Nate likes and people who are really competitive athletes is just a circle.
Right.
And so I think that friendship is a really important aspect of this team right now, not only to Nathan MacKinnon, but to everybody. I want to talk a little bit more about depth as a scoring issue, read out some numbers here, and then we can dig into maybe some individual people like Casey Middlestat. And I want to revisit Ross Colton too, because this is a player I typically think of as being high energy, high motor, can add energy to a line. So I don't want to be so quick to give up on him just yet. But over the last 20 games, there have been 52 goals. I just want to point out that Mackenzie Blackwood has had a .916 save percentage in that time to include on the year. He still remains one of the best goaltenders in terms of saves above expected. Mackenzie Blackwood is continuing to do exactly what he needs to do to take care of things on his end. And I just want to get that out of the way. Of those 52 goals, 29 goals are from Lehkonen, MacKinnon, Makar, and Toews. There's 4 additional goals each from Netches, 3 from Drouin, 3 from Rantanen, and that is now 39 of 52 goals from all of those people. I'm kind of counting Drouin as like an extension of the top line because I think he's separated from the production of the second line, and because the top 6 has fluctuated so much, I'm basically boiling this down to the top line, and Cale Makar and Devon Toews have contributed 39 of 52 goals over the last 20 games. Somewhere in that mix over the last 20, Logan O'Connor, Parker Kelly, and Juuso Parssinen and Jack Drury have 2 goals apiece. Below that tier is Sam Girard and Sam Malinsky with 1. Colton, Kiviranta, and Middlestat with 1. 57 of 77 total assists on the 52 goals came from MacKinnon, Lehkonen, Netchis, Drouin, Taves, and Makar. This is important. One, they're playing on lines together. That isn't exactly brand new information, but it points to all of the puck touches, all of the playmaking is happening inside one line and one 5-man unit, including Taves and Makar on the top pair. Kesey Middlestat over the last 20 games, 7 points. Juuso Parssinen, 6 points. Josh Manson, 5 points, 3 secondary assists in those 5. Kelly OC, 4 points in the last 20. Kiviranta and Colton, 3 points in the last 20. And Malinsky, Gerard, Drury, Middleton, 2 points in the last 20. Calvin DeHaan, 1 point in the last 20. There are some names that I haven't even read aloud there because they don't have any points in the last 20. And Miles Wood is one of them. He missed some time due to injury, but he has been back now for a little bit over that 20-game stretch. So
it hasn't been the whole 20 games?
It hasn't been the whole 20 games. The trade deadline, it's 11 days away. Is this a team past saving? Obviously, that's a huge concern with the lack of depth scoring and the entirety of their goal scoring coming from one 5-man unit.
I mean, if you're Chris McFarland right now, are you sweating? I feel like at this point you should be. I mean, it's really coming down to the wire here. And I mean, when you read it off like that, it makes it sound a lot worse. And I don't know. I still think you're getting a lot of contributions from your bottom 6, but I do think when you read it like that, you realize, wow, this is maybe a bigger problem than we all think it might have been. And you just, I mean, I honestly look at this and compare it to previous cup teams, especially this team in 2022 and the contributions that they had from their bottom 6 to win that cup. I don't, is that something that they could do now if they make it to the playoffs? Do they have the strength and the capabilities from the depth to win a cup with this team?
It's a really fair question because when you do look back at past teams and the cup team, it feels like an unfair one because of how well constructed it was. But it isn't entirely unfair because that's the reason they were able to get it across the finish line. They had to overcome pretty significant injuries. Sam Girard, they lose him for almost all of the playoffs, an important player on this year's team. And even with the injuries on that 2022 Cup team, that's how deep they were. They were able to overcome those things and be pretty dominant. That, though it feels a bit unfair in this Cap era to compare, it is important, though. The depth mattered because when you look third line by third line, you know, it was some combination of Comfer and Burakovsky and Newhook, and Nico Sturm was in the mix there too. And it just feels really different right now with a struggling Ross Colton, Miles Wood, whose game has sort of become reduced down to one dimension. He's got speed, he's got a little bit of tenacity to him, but there really isn't a lot of puck skill that's going to translate to goal scoring. I don't want to say anymore as if this is some kind of death sentence, but it just hasn't really come through this season. And the hope that he'd beat all of those things I just said, but with some of a goal scoring punch, at least being able to grind it out on the forecheck, get more puck touches by winning battles, and get the puck to the higher skilled player on the line like a Ross Colton. And it just hasn't come together in that way. You know, Jack Drury, he's new to the team, and so that's a new addition to that line. And I think back to the playoffs recently in the Winnipeg series where Kiviranta, Colton, and Wood were a really dominant force to contend with in the playoffs because you kind of got a little different out of Kiviranta in the playoffs than we saw in the regular season. But that's a gamble because we don't know what any of these players might look like in playoff form. We just know what they look like right now. And right now, this third line doesn't feel strong enough to be a fourth line.
I think that's the hardest thing about this is that all of these players, we know that they have this in them, but they go through these periods where it just kind of falls off and you don't know why or how to bring it back, but you know it's there somewhere.
Yeah.
That's what's so hard about it.
As you say it, something that stood out to me as a little bit of a concern in talking about how the front office probably didn't plan for them to be hit this hard on the depth as we've seen. also didn't count on players' games regressing as much as we've seen, because Casey Middlestat earlier in the year talked about how he's never dealt with anything like this before in his career in terms of the drought that has crept up into his game and has kind of stayed there. And Ross Colton today was talking about how he's never really experienced something like this in his career. And it's certainly concerning to hear players who have good years in the NHL under their belt. Ross Colton, a Stanley Cup winning player with Tampa, talk about being hit hard by something they haven't had to overcome before.
Yeah. What would I do in this situation? That's what I think about. But I also, I mean, I think that, having a little bit of time off was really good for them. I think there are some players that came back from that break and they look a lot better than they did before. But I also think, I mean, they came back and they had 2 back-to-back games. If you see a player like Casey Middlestat and Ross Colton that aren't looking as refreshed as you hope they would from this break, I still think it's too early to say.
I think you're right. It'll be interesting to see how they respond to this 6-game homestand that they have on top now coming up, because there's some consistency in that scheduling. Like, you're not going through travel days, and so you get to go home to your bed, and you're also getting into a rhythm with practicing with your teammates every day that I think would benefit them, because they did have something so new dropped on them in a trade just before the break. And I do feel, whether we like it or not, that probably has to be kind of tough to have new teammates to get adjusted to, but also to be coming to a new place and then immediately go on a break. So this is an Avs team too that has struggled coming out of breaks before, that understandably they need to shake some rust off. But I personally feel this is kind of the last low point of the season that should exist, at least in terms of being self-inflicted. What I mean by that is the St. Louis game sucked because they just got outcompeted. And it sucked that they didn't seem to come ready to compete and match St. Louis where they were at. St. Louis came hungry to win that game, and they made little adjustments in game despite being on the second leg of a back-to-back themselves. That makes me look at the Avs like, I know this is a group that loves to win, but do they hate to lose? And I think that's the question I need answered from this group moving forward. I know that there are so many competitors with a drive to win, but I need to see you allergic to losing right now. It needs to defy every fiber of your being to lose. And so you have to dig deep, even when the tank is empty, because we saw the Four Nations guys do it. They come back, they don't get a break. They just played in an intense tournament, and they come back in that Nashville game playing with intensity. So they physically might be a little bit less recharged as the guys who truly got a break, but they came with an intensity. And we'll let the Jared Bednar clip in a couple seconds probably play through some of what the distinction is between even tired top players can dig deeper in games where they might not have their legs under them. And that is what was missing in the St. Louis game. And it's kind of like, that needs to be the last time I see it.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting obvious in a way that they're relying very heavily on their top line. And that's not what you want to see out of a team like this. One of the biggest reasons I was cheering for Canada in the Four Nations tournament was because I was thinking, okay, if Canada wins, then these guys are going to come back and they're just going to ignite something in this team. They're going to bring an energy that just, all of everybody else on the team is going to feel that and want to play because of that. And then we just didn't get that, and it fell a little flat. And I was kind of disappointed that I feel like they brought that intensity and it wasn't matched by the rest of their team.
I think when I hear about criticisms of Nathan MacKinnon, this is one area where I think his brand of leadership is really necessary. He's an accountability guy. You drop a pass in practice to his frustration, he'll bark at you and he'll let you know.
He'll literally bark at you.
He'll literally bark at you like a dog. And I think that they need to be barked at right now, because they didn't care enough just like seeing by example the level that these Four Nations guys were at. I think there needs to be a little teammate to teammate accountability. Like, hey, that's actually unacceptable.
This is like when Taves last year was talking to the media. We need a little bit of that energy. because I think the team can feel that when you have one of your top players voice their frustration.
Yes. I think too, what stinks is it does feel like we've had these low moments before throughout this season, even where even a Taves specifically in a post game has kind of come out and they've gotten the win. There's one game that springs to mind where he gets the OT winner in a game that shouldn't have been in OT. And so he's like, look, glad we got the win, but I kind of hate how we got there.
Yeah.
And what frustrates me is those, commentaries in the media have already come through from some of the leaders. What's not sticking here? Is it is it the message that hasn't really resonated with them? Because again, I said this about Bednar with respect to his coaching, that he can show them what's wrong, he can show them what's right, but he can't make them care. Even Nathan MacKinnon can't make them care. So there's also only so much that a Taves or a MacKinnon can do here. This is where, as a group, they need to dig really deep within themselves right now to decide, are we comfortable just being in the top wildcard spot, or do we want to challenge that part of the conversation that's not even the right placement for us? There's injuries out of our control earlier in this year, but that stopped being an excuse in January. That needs to be something that they turn the page on entirely.
And I think that was the most frustrating part about this past weekend was that you're going into this and you're in the top wildcard spot. You're fighting for an opportunity to even make it to the playoffs right now. You have the opportunity to play two teams that are within your division, and you don't step up to the plate and you lose both games. Division games.
That's such a great point about leaving those points on the table, because here's where I'll try to pull myself off the ledge a little bit. The Nashville
We're
game,
just pushing each other closer and closer to the ledge. We
and
probably
pulling
should
each
take
other
it back
back.
a
It's
little
this
bit.
fun little game on pucks and Prosecco. When we did the post game for the Nashville, I liked it. Okay, liked is crazy, but I didn't hate a lot of aspects of it, and I found myself coming to defense of the team on certain things because I really did appreciate some of the process. So I don't want to forget that the Nashville game happened, and I thought they deserved a better fate, and they just ran into a hot goaltender.
Yeah.
That's not to make excuses, but on the heels of that, obviously how they respond in St. Louis feels pretty dang frustrating. Interestingly, I don't know if we just have Bednar queued. Do we?
I do.
That's perfect. Okay. I'll talk about what Logan O'Connor said then, because
Okay.
the St. Louis game starts with Parker Kelly dropping the gloves. And I kind of love it because it's tactful. He's not trying to fight every game. And the timing of it, you could tell, was meant to inspire a little bit of energy and just set a tone, get the momentum going early.
He was taking it from the USA-Canada game. It's like, I want to drop my gloves.
He's like, all right, we've got 9 seconds, guys. 2 more if you need to fight. And there were no takers. No.
Dang it.
And that's why in the last few minutes of that first period, things kind of fell off, because there was a jump for like the first 15 minutes in the first period against St. Louis, and then it kind of fell to the wayside. Blackwood had to come up with some big saves, and it stunk a little bit that Parker Kelly's intention in sparking some energy was wasted. But I want to give Parker Kelly credit. I want to give Logan O'Connor credit, because there were moments in that game where I even said aloud, at least Logan O'Connor still cares, which is interesting because talking to him today, he was a little bit critical of everyone and himself in terms of effort. In the word he used too, I think, was like compete, that he felt even he had more to give when it comes to compete, and it's something that they're all reflecting on at the moment. So to be clear too, the vibe around practice today was one, it was a really long practice. It was educational. They broke out into separate groups and did a lot of new drills, new work one-on-one with teaching. So it's clear that something new is being taught, being implemented here. And then in the locker room afterwards, it's kind of somber. Like, I wouldn't go as far to say that vibes were bad by any means, but Logan O'Connor was pretty hard on himself. Ross Colton was pretty hard on himself. And Jonathan Drouin was quick to point out that there is pressure that they're feeling, and they fully recognize the issues with the lack of scoring throughout the lineup. So I don't think that they're not getting the messaging. It's just not translating into the on-ice product just yet.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely I mean, at practice, they were still Ross Colton was smiling and trying to hit pucks at Gerard. I'm not sure what he was trying to
That
do
was
there.
really cute. Yeah, there were still some smiles.
Right. So it wasn't that, the vibes were bad and everybody's upset with each other and now there's this whole conflict going
No.
on. It was just you really can tell that they know what's going on and they know that they need to be better. For the sake of them making it to the playoffs, they need to be better. So, I think that's a good sort of frustration to have in the locker room as long as it doesn't go JT Miller far.
JT Miller Far is a great call out. But you're right. I got this sense too that there was this feeling of, yeah, we know we're bad. Just
Right.
with all of the questions.
It was kind of, yeah.
No one was mean, and you're right. It was a lot lighter than maybe I'm giving it credit for, but there was kind of like, yeah, Bednar's shown us. We know. We know we were
Yeah.
bad guys.
It's like, you can't tell
We
me
get it.
anything that I haven't told myself. It's like, oh, yeah.
All right,
Yep, that
let's
makes
let
sense.
Jared Bednar talk to us for a minute. And I actually think his demeanor will probably calm some people down because morale was a word that came up. The morale's obviously a little bit down on the heels of the St. Louis game because it left a bitter taste in everybody's mouth. Good. And Jared Bednar is not concerned that's going to be a lingering issue around morale. And I think it just takes winning, according to Jared Bednar.
Yep. Let's hear.
Out there in the red jersey, is he a possibility for tomorrow?
He is a possibility for tomorrow.
What does he bring to your lineup when he is clear to play?
A little bit of everything, as you know. You know it, right? It's both sides of the puck. He's one of the top players in the league. So getting him back, when we get him back, will be helpful.
Is he
Yeah. Uh-oh.
What happened, Bednar? What did you do?
He got sick
This-
of our vibes.
This has to be a problem from me editing it, or I mean, I recorded and edited it, so now I'm scared.
No, I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure something editing-wise and then loading it into StreamYard got a little bit funny.
Yeah,
We'll try to recap it for
I'll
you.
work on that.
This is exactly what Jared Bednar said. No, I'm just kidding. But he did talk about a lack of concern around morale being a bit low on the heels of that back-to-back because we'd be surprised how much winning can help a group. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. I think, too, losing Mikko Rantanen was really hard. I don't even necessarily think that losing one of your highest goal scorers and then immediately having goal scoring issues, like, I don't want to be so quick to link those two things. I do think, though, we've talked about it too. We rightfully talk about Mikko Rantanen's role on the team. He was such a good teammate to everybody, and he was such a glue guy. And I think that this is a really tight group. They work on a lot of things individually, but I actually think they need to work more together than anything right now, even though it feels like individual players have problems. Like, I'm sure Ross Colton and Casey Middlestat are trying to dig inward on their individual games and figure out what's going on there. But I think it's a time more than ever for them to come together as a group, going back to Val's Pals and the power of friendship and Nathan MacKinnon.
How do we get Val's Pals back? Do you think if we tell Bednar that we need it back, that he'll give it to us?
We promise it will work. And if it doesn't, we'll fire Jesse.
We'll fire Jesse. No repercussions for us, just Jesse.
Please bring back Val's Pals. Yeah, okay, so
I'm re-editing Bednar, so it's downloading. It should take about 7 minutes, so we'll see if I re-upload that, if that will hopefully work. So we have about 7 minutes.
Bama Metcalf, a lot of these guys' biggest issue is shooting the puck. And you are so correct. Logan O'Connor talked about it a little bit in some of the work that they're doing right now and how they are overcoming this lack of scoring that has plagued them has been obviously adopting a shoot first mentality and then working hard to be at the net front and get inner ice to go for second, third chances. But that all starts with shooting the puck more from the outside and just getting pucks on net. And I think that's interesting because my brain immediately goes to, what is it about the mindset of a player who is quick to defer to another teammate? I always go back to a little bit of lack of trust in themselves. And I think that comes from a lack of confidence. And if you're like a Russ Colton or a Casey Middlestat and you've been struggling for a little bit now, it does take a toll on your confidence.
Yeah.
And I'm speculating on that one, but I'm not speculating on Sam Malinsky, who Jared Bednar talked about today. He is a player that he got his offense to translate at the NHL level last year. We saw it firsthand. And then this year, he had a strong camp and started the year really solid. It wasn't just that he was getting some puck touches. It was more so that he was a solid defender.
Yep.
But then the offensive side of his game, it grew a little bit quiet, and then it just stayed kind of quiet. So it was great to see him come out of the break and get rewarded with a goal. And it's not just singularly a goal, but you're seeing him more involved in the O-zone. He's more involved in their overall attack. He's shooting the puck more. And I think that it's clear to me, one, that this was messaging that was directly received by the player, and it's not just a Sam Malinsky problem. Everybody's kind of dealing with it. And with Malinsky, Jared Bednar talks about confidence and trust in themselves. Like, you don't want to make a mistake, and it can lead to you playing safe, is what he said. And I think that this is bigger than just Sam Malinsky at this point. I think the whole of the D-corps outside of Taves and Makar, who have obviously been doing what they should be, needs to embrace a similar operate off instinct. Trust yourself a little bit more. I know it's probably hard when the confidence is down a bit, but you got to fake it till you make it a little bit too.
Do you remember Sam Girard's game-winning goal? And then what he said in the locker room was, like, coaches told us that we need to shoot more, so I'm shooting more, and he picked up on that mentality, and it obviously worked for him. And I think, I don't know, I mean, I think they're just starting to kind of grasp that idea and run with it, especially Sam Malinsky. I mean, he had that overturned goal, a few weeks before Four Nations. So you can tell something is clicking for him and something is working, and he's definitely shooting more, getting more shots on goal. So I think he is trending in a good direction.
I do too. Jared Bednar didn't love his St. Louis game after appreciating his Nashville game. So it's a matter of consistency now for Sam Malinsky moving forward. And, in talking about stepping up to the plate in the absence of a Josh Manson, it's nice that he came in this time around, Malinsky that is, on that second pair with Girard. And I think he looks more comfortable there than the first time around that I saw them together. And so I still, I love that Jared Bednar said that he doesn't evaluate his team on the result. I think it was, I might be misquoting it, but the sentiment is the same of, even when they lose, he's not just immediately writing off that game. There are still going to be moments of growth or things that he appreciated about a game, even in the face of a loss. And similarly, in the face of a win, he's still going to find criticisms of them. And I think that's true of where, like, Malinsky's game is at too, that even in the loss in Nashville and in the loss in St. Louis, I still see growth overall, net positive in the player that returned from the break, because the St. Louis game, it wasn't Malinsky's best game. It wasn't anyone's best game.
Yeah.
There are few high points of that game outside of Mackenzie Blackwood, in my opinion.
I completely agree. And I think, especially if you're Sam Malinsky, the bar was pretty low. So yes, there has definitely been some growth over the past few days, but it's still the kind of the same thing. That's why I don't want to say too much about it, because I think that it's too early for me to be so critical of everyone right after the break.
I agree. And when I look at a game where everybody didn't play very well, I'm not quick to say, right, well, why didn't this guy
Right.
look great when nobody looked
Mhm.
good.
I'm quick to say Mackenzie Blackwood looks phenomenal, but don't want to be quick to say anything about anybody else. Yes.
No, especially seeing the growth. I want to reward the progress by talking about it, and I've done that with other players this year. I think that's exactly the right timing of it all because with Josh Manson's status, still being a little bit uncertain,
Mhm.
they've got work to do on the back end no matter what,
Yeah.
but this is the lineup they have to go play New Jersey tomorrow.
Yeah.
So they better feel pretty good about the Sands as the second pair, at least for right now.
Mhm.
And I like that there are signs of growth.
I want to call out this comment too because this is a really fair point. When you're playing with DeHaan for that long, I think he looks a lot better playing with Gerard. So I think that this is very true. I think he could benefit from having a partner with him that actually made him probably look a little better than DeHaan does.
It's been tough. Like at the beginning of the year, I liked DeHaan and Malinsky as a pairing, and I thought they complemented each other as well as they could. They're two different types of player. And I saw, though, how if a player does have limited mobility or puck skill as a defenseman, it can hurt a puck-moving defenseman's game. And it can be hard even just starting in your own end with the breakout if the play that you're looking for to break out the puck and move play up ice is so simple that it just gets defended against in the neutral zone, then you're not really going to have a great attack. And so I think that even having a player who has a little bit more puck skill, improving the breakout, helps a player like Malinsky to be playing opposite of to get play up ice together as a 5-man unit. I think that's where I've seen it maybe hold things back. And then similarly in holding the blue line in the offensive zone, if you're not as offensively minded, sometimes keeps at the blue line weren't happening because they weren't expecting the puck to cycle high when it did. And so it's little things like it's not specific to just DeHaan that I think Middleton doesn't excel at. And Shillington should excel at these things, but this year has just been such a struggle for him. It's actually heartbreaking. I don't know where to begin, but all I know is it's not an option. I don't think Shillington works in Colorado. I still think there's a hockey player there just based on what I saw in Calgary, but I just think there's not enough time left in the year to be playing around with the Shillington experiment. I'm not comfortable with it. And to your point, I think going with the wrong mix in the bottom pair can be detrimental to some of your players, can hold them back a little bit.
Yeah. What do you think about this comment? It's really easy for me to be critical. I'm over the inconsistency and excuses. The team has enough players that they should be winning more consistently.
They definitely have players. They do have guys. It's just tough going back to, this is not what they imagined with Kiviranta and Kelly in the lineup on a nightly basis. And I love Parker Kelly. This is not taking a shot at him. I just don't think it was supposed to be both on a nightly basis.
Yeah.
I even look at Juuso Parssinen playing on a second line. Like he was brought here to be more of a 13th forward, like an option for the fourth line and a little bit of a reclamation project with a young player that has upside that maybe hasn't been fully discovered, but he was certainly not supposed to be a second line option. And so, look, you're right. They have bodies and uniforms. This is not close to being close is dramatic. They are close to being complete, but also far enough away from it that they need to address some of this, like another depth piece, another top six forward, ideally a solution for the second line center job. That's just the room that we're in. And then obviously the work that we talked about on the back end. But I don't know, that's like 3 pretty impactful areas of the lineup that need to be addressed. It's great that the goaltending's resolved, though.
Yeah, gotta look at the positives.
Gotta look at the positives.
I think I had Bednar, so maybe
Bednar, calm us down.
Let's try it and see if it'll work. All right, here we go. Guys, let us know if it pauses again.
How's out there in the red jersey? Is he a possibility for tomorrow?
He is a possibility for tomorrow.
What does he bring to your lineup when he is cleared to play?
A little bit of everything, as you know. You know what to write. I mean, it's both sides of the puck. It's I mean, he's one of the top players in the league. So getting him back, when we get him back, will be helpful.
Is he confirmed back yet, or is that more?
No, you'll have to wait to see tomorrow.
I mean, we've talked, I guess, after the last couple of games about lack of depth scoring, et cetera. Is just getting him back enough, or do you need other stuff to happen as well?
Yeah, no, I think we need other stuff to happen for sure. He'll certainly help some of the guys he's playing with, regularly, and he'll help our team in turn. So, but I think we still need some work to do on the scoring side of it.
Coach, you talked about you focus on things that you can control, the players focus on the things that they can control, with kind of almost a feeling of lack of chemistry in that across the board. How does that happen? How do you kind of work on that?
Well, I mean, we're likely to juggle those guys a little bit now. So, I don't like changing our lines a lot if we feel like the lines are structured the way we want them. And we've seen success out of some of those lines together already. Like, if they play a game or two without being productive, we're going to let it go. We're going to teach them, coach them, and turn them loose again and see if they can improve on some things. And, but if it runs too long, then I think you gotta be open to mixing it up and changing it up a little bit, even if it's just one player swap and that changes a couple lines, and so we'll see. We're still talking about tomorrow's lineup and some of the things that we want to do.
We were talking to a couple guys in the locker room, and they admitted that morale was a bit down based on the results and maybe not living up to their expectation. Is that a bigger picture thing that you're concerned about, just keeping, seeing the forest and not getting lost?
Well, I think it's amazing what one win will do for guys' morale. That's what I think. So you focus on the what's immediately in front of you, and that's New Jersey tomorrow night, and go and doing everything that we can on both sides of the puck to be successful. And when you do that, and if you can do that, and you can pull out the 2 points, then you can start building something back, right? And so there's fluctuations in the season constantly. I think some guys their morale wouldn't get down if we just lost one game, but if you lose a couple in a row, then it might get down. And other guys are, guys fight through that with mental toughness a little bit differently. So I'm not too worried about it, because you got to think, we were playing some of our best hockey of the year right before the break. So that's not that long ago. So this hasn't been going on that long. And you guys might think I'm crazy, but I liked our Nashville game too. I thought we had a lot of pace. We did a lot of good things. We were highly competitive. We created 20+ scoring chances. We held them down. They just happened to score in a couple of theirs, and we didn't on ours. So I don't judge our team just on the results. It's becoming more important that we get the results because of where we're sitting in the standings and everything we've gone through this year. But the disappointing game was St. Louis. So right now it's one game where I didn't like the way we played.
Ross Bolton last year was a consistent bottom six performer offensively. Obviously, he played some second line, but just he had that hot start, has the injury, misses 6 weeks, comes back, and it just kind of has flatlined. How do you, what's going on there? What's wrong there? Is it just the injury has kind of hindered his season, or should he have bounced back by now?
Yeah, well, yes, but there's been games that he's played where I've really liked him, so again, just not focusing on his results. I have to look at his entire game, and then we talk about a number of things, it's for me, it'll start with work ethic, competitiveness, right, which he brings on most nights, and then the detail to his game, and then you start picking at tactical things and positions, routes, where can you go to be more of a scorer and get more dangerous, and so we look at it in zone play and transition and all of it, and you just kind of break it down. If you get incrementally better in 5 or 6 areas of the game, then maybe you're getting more opportunities, right? So But yeah, I would have liked to see the offense come back. He's had some different line mates here. You know, there's been some fluctuations in our lineup and different centermen and whatnot. So they're still finding it, but it's going to have to come pretty quickly for not just him. Like, it's a lot of guys that are kind of gone cold for us here right now.
Has there been any thought at all to shift him to center, or do you want to just keep him wing this year?
Well, we're kind of full in the middle right now, so if I'm moving him into center, then I got to move a centerman to the wing, which isn't ideal, you know. I think he can produce. I don't think it's position that's hurting his scoring, you know. Like he scored earlier this year and at different times for us on the wing, and so I don't think that's the issue. If I did, I'd move him probably.
How has the break appeared to benefit a player like Sam Malinsky, someone that grew a little bit quiet after such a strong start this year? It seems like he's adopted more of a shooting mentality.
Yeah, I like that in him, because I think part of Sam's game is that he needs to continue to work on is like the consistency of what he is as a player. And when I look at him, the way he skates, the way he handles the puck, the way he shoots, I think he has to be part of our attack more. So consistently staying part of it and picking spots where he can get up and go, and to me, oftentimes he looks like he's just playing a little too safe, which is then not as productive as what it could be if he was jumping and joining and playing with a ton of confidence. So we saw, you know, obviously a big goal in Nashville, and that's exactly what we need him to do. And so I like to see him find 10 or 12 more opportunities throughout the course of the game to do that. So good start. Didn't love his game in St. Louis, and the same with the rest of our team. So hopefully he can bounce back and sort of pick up where he left off from the Nashville game. So he was really effective.
Logan was talking about communication on the bench has been a little bit kind of quieter, and I'm just, how detrimental or how like important is that, and how do you encourage the guys to like be more communicative with each other?
Well, we talk about it in intermissions a lot. The communication on the ice is the most important, okay? And certain guys on the bench like to just focus, reset, don't say a lot. But I do think when the conversations that they have when they come off the ice, if they didn't like something or where were you there on that play, and they look at the iPad, I think those are important, especially to build chemistry. And our guys are pretty good at doing that. You know, like the whole raw locker room on the bench, like it's gotta mean something, you know, like it's just a lot of chatter doesn't necessarily turn into productivity. I do think it can help our team at times when certain guys speak up, but it's the communication on the ice that really helps your team the most.
How critical is this home stretch after 24 days of not being here? You get a bunch at a critical time.
I think it's important. It's obviously an important part of our season, right? Especially coming off a couple road losses now. It's important that we play well, and it's going to be important that we get some results. So I think all of our guys understand it. I don't think anyone's sitting in that room going, yeah, we can just cruise to the playoffs. Like we're in a race, and we've known we've been in a race for a while, and I love the way our team responded going into the break, and we had talked about it in depth prior to our last 5 games. And we'll continue to talk about it. We talked about it a little bit this morning going into this, that this is important for us. You know, we're at home. We're going to be a rested team, and yeah, we have to play well. If we play well, we'll get the results we want.
You said you'll come into the year like you're not the high-flying, high-powered team you were in the past.
Yeah.
Did you expect that over the summer? Like, did you think this team's going to be different, or is that something that's kind of you've had to adjust on the fly as the year has gone?
We've kind of adjusted on the fly a little bit. I think you're coming in, you're always hoping for the best. Like Middlestead had a great finish to the season last year. We liked a lot of the things that he did. Had a great start to this year, and that's kind of like gone away a little bit. It's a second line center spot. You're without, like we've been without, you know the guys. But the guys like Drouin, Lackey, Val, extended periods, like those guys, when they're out, you have to make some adjustments, and it's not easy just to like for someone else just go. It's not as easy as just go into his spot and then produce like Val does, right? So, yeah, we still talk about the same things and playing the same way tactically. You know, where are the areas that we want to try to expose offensively? How do we want to transition? The pace that we want to play at, which is why I like the Nashville game. it just disappeared for us in St. Louis. And I don't think the guys forgot about it overnight, but it certainly didn't help that Taser, Kale, Mac were playing their third game in 3.5 nights and didn't look like they had any legs, right? Like, we rely on those guys to help drive it. So yeah, all those things kind of in culmination will give them some rest. That's why Mac and, no one asked, but Mac and Kale and Taser weren't on the ice today. I gave them the option, even going into the weekend, to see how they feel. I felt like they were going to probably be tired at some point after that they should take a couple days and get away and give their minds and bodies a break, and then come back to work tomorrow and get ready to play.
Last few, Megan.
The Four Nations guys did return with a lot of intensity, though probably tired in the St. Louis game.
Yeah.
Can you leverage that as an example to point to as the level that the rest of the players need to raise them to?
Yeah, I think so. Like, it's not like they were playing back to back, but the mental toughness that they showed to be able to. You're coming off, number one, big emotional, like 10 days, big win. It'd be easy to kind of just come back and relax. And you got to give those three guys credit. Well, four with Lecky, that to be able to come back into the game in Nashville, the first game back, and play the way they played. Like, I really liked all three of those guys in that game. They took control of the game. They created a ton of chances. We were down late. They were pushing hard, and they played a lot of minutes too. And that you can be mentally tough and still run out of gas, right? Like you mentioned. So, but it's things we talk about from time to time, is our mental toughness. And I didn't love it in the St. Louis game, because I thought, even first period, or first 15 minutes of the first period, we were fine, and even at the start of the second, we were fine. We had a little lull at the end of the first period that kind of gave them life, and then they kind of started snowballing at the 15-minute mark of the second. They started to really come, and we didn't answer back. So for a lot of the guys, for some of those guys, it would have been fatigue, and for a lot of the other guys, they just didn't think we were mentally tough enough to push back, and we didn't get competitive in the right areas in order to give ourselves a chance to win the game.
Well, if you feel bad about the Avs after that, you might just need to eat a cookie, because we ate a cookie while Bednar was talking, and I already feel a lot better.
I feel so much better.
Like, genuinely, I do feel like I have leaned very negative throughout the whole show, and I wouldn't take back anything that I said, but I do want to also put into perspective the whole of the season. Mackenzie Blackwood still rules. He's 7th in the league save percentage with a games played minimum of at least 20 games. So of the starting goaltenders in the league, he's a top 10 goaltender. And we know that his job hasn't always been easy this year. To stay competitive on a nightly basis when the team has really fluctuated in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge testament to how he has helped to stabilize this group with goaltending. Cale Makar, 64 points on the year, hit his 400th career point milestone. Yay! Among the third fastest defensemen to ever do it. Nathan MacKinnon, the Four Nations MVP. He is just 13 points away from another 100-point season,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think we were sitting here doubting it for a second.
Mm-mm.
He's been impressive all year. This is where, like, all right, is this team worth saving? Yes, it is worth saving. Their stars are so good. You see that in the Four Nations tournament, too. Like, the best on best, it's basically the Colorado Avalanche on Team Canada.
Yeah.
Obviously, Connor McDavid and Sidney Crosby are
Mhm.
sick, but the representation from Colorado's top players in that tournament kind of highlighted why they're not just the best on Colorado, but they're the best in the league, and they are year by year, and they're in this window of their prime that it's important for the front office to continue to be as bold and as aggressive as we've seen this year. The Mikko Rantanen trade, I was thinking about, like, the monkey paw, where you can have your wish granted and it comes at the expense of something grave. And it's like, what the Avs need? They need Martin Netchis and Jack Drury.
Mm-hmm.
But it comes at the expense of Mikko Rantanen, who you also needed. And they just need to find a little, get back to the roots, one, because I hate to hear Jared Bednar talking about how we're not this high-powered, high-flying offense that we used to be. I think at the top, they still are in a lot of ways, but I
Yeah.
do think, especially in the absence of a Mikko Rantanen, they need to reevaluate their identity a little bit. And I think with the lack of depth scoring, some of that is part of adopting a new new habits inside a system that's going to reward them a little differently from what they once knew. And I think it's going to take a couple of games for that to come together. And they need to continue to dig deep. There's
Mhm.
no more excuses. Again, the St. Louis game needs to be a memory. It needs to be a turning point that you look back on never again. We can't get lower than that point. And I'm making it into a pretty big deal, but it's more so the time. It is running out. We're on the doorstep of the deadline.
Mhm.
And I still look at this Avs group as one worth saving. I think with the talent that they have, we should have seen a better result through this point in the year than we've gotten a chance to, because they have been without a top 6 that looks complete all year, even right now, without a Nichushkin there. It's been
Mhm.
without Duren, it's been without MacKinnon, and those are absences that have been felt deeply. Obviously, they need to get clear on the Landeskog situation too, but this is a team that has 23 games left and change too, with 11 days from the deadline to show us who they really are.
Whenever I think about this, I always think about something that you said, and it was right after they traded Mikko, when you said Mikko was a luxury that they can't afford.
Yeah.
And I think about that all the time when I think about this team and how we have Nathan MacKinnon and Cale Makar, and now Netchis comes into the mix with all of that. You have so many star players on this team. It does get easy to kind of rely on them to kind of take over the game. And they need to go back to their roots of everybody plays their game. Everybody has the confidence to play their game. They are a team that is worth saving. I really hope they will stay in the position they are. If not, it will go up, and it'll be very clear that they're going to make it to the playoffs or not. So it's not getting scary, but I don't think it's anything that anyone should be overly concerned about with this team.
Outside of the top guys, it makes me think of something. Have you ever had a friend who is constantly the victim in life? And it's almost like at some point you are you're the source of your own problems,
Mhm.
and being in this perpetual state of victimhood, being the damsel in distress, you seal your fate when that's all you allow yourself to be.
Yeah.
And I look at the rest of the lineup and the lack of scoring depth, and it's like, you know what? What if no one is coming to save you? What
Mhm.
if you've decided no one's coming to save me? Nathan MacKinnon isn't coming to save me. He might, because that's who he is. But what if you adopted a completely different mentality to be your own hero? And
Mhm.
I know that sounds cheesy, but it does feel like all the troubles of the year earlier on, I think some guys slipped into a victim mindset and
Yeah.
they didn't even clock it. Like, oh, there's just so many injuries and we lost Mikko. He was such a big part of this group. And at
Mhm.
some point, you have to decide that no one's coming to save you.
Yeah.
And you got to save yourself.
There were so many things for them to blame this on. Bad goaltending, injuries. All of that let them slip into that mentality. And now they can't do that anymore. It's showing what their weaknesses are, and their weaknesses have to do with depth.
Yeah.
And you can't hide from that. And Nathan MacKinnon is not your Superman.
No, he's his own man. All right.
Yes.
Nathan MacKinnon is taking care of himself.
God,
and
he's got a girlfriend to
he'll-
take care of.
He'll help you. I remember his New Year's resolutions, he said that she was going to come up with them. So she knocked it out of the park. Whatever she
Mhm.
told him to do, she probably told him to dig deeper in the face-off dot, and he's been working at it.
Yeah.
Keep up the great work. But everybody else, all right, look in the mirror.
Yeah.
No one's coming to save you except for yourself. So you're the master of your own fate. I think it's getting a little cheesy, so we can start our our burn book segment. Also, we got a super chat. I like this vaguely sober. Thank you so much for the super chat.
Woo!
My concern,
We don't have the lights today.
I
I don't know
know.
if John knows how to do the lights, but
Would
that's
you
okay.
like a cookie instead?
Do you want a Girl Scout cookie?
My
Just one.
concern is if you're a Val short of being great, 1 injury away from being good, not great, 2 injuries from being not great. It's true, like in talking about how, oh, this team is so close. I'm like, well, there's 3 areas that I'd like for them to address. 3 doesn't feel like a big number, but when you're looking at areas of the lineup that need to be evaluated before the deadline or in some way, that does feel 3 too many, though, from feeling comfortable. And similarly, if you're a Val short of being good and you're one injury away, because we're sitting here talking about who we take out of the lineup, and we're not unsure of who we would because they've all been so good. It's more like taking one of these guys out of the mix in the bottom 9, other than Jonathan Drouin, doesn't feel like it changes very much.
Yeah.
And I think it's a fair call out that they're close enough that I think this is a season worth saving, but there's still work to do, and it's hanging on a knife's edge. And I think they can move this into a more stable place by winning together more consistently. I know that sounds super cheesy, but I genuinely do think it's like the proof of concept when they see, oh, we can win together and we can do this well in this third line. These are our strengths. Let's play to them. I think you start to feel a lot more comfortable, and then it doesn't feel so dire. But depth is still a huge issue, even past the current lineup that over the summer, like, that's what Kelly and Kiviranta were here to do. That's what Jack Drury was brought here to do. Depth is still an issue, though.
It definitely is. I wouldn't say that you're a Val short of being great. I think there are a lot other things that you have to look at before they can be considered great. Like, I think, yes, in a way they're great right now, but I think there are a lot of things that they need that need to be changed. But I even think about it this way. You have, it's your depth has gotten so bad that most of your fans are relying on Chris McFarland to make a move to fix that. And in your brain, something has to click with that, where they're going to make a change if they don't think that you can do it. They will trade you if they think that you can't do it. And we're starting to get in a position where people think that they have to make a trade because you can't step up to the plate. And something about that just, it hasn't resonated.
I think too, I wonder if the pendulum swung like way too far the other way and it got into guys' heads in a negative way.
Yeah,
Like if they're willing to
100%.
trade even Mikko Rantanen,
Mhm.
nobody's safe.
Yeah.
And it just led to this inner turmoil and like fear mentality of, am I next if I don't play well tonight? And obviously there are players that we're seeing struggle pretty hard this year. So I think it goes back to the mental toughness aspect that Jared Bednar was talking about too.
Yeah.
Like, this has been an aggressive front office, and that sends a lot of different messages. Some of those can be very good. This is a front office that is willing to go all in around this team, but it also obviously could create some insecurity too. Like, is my job safe? Is my place here in Colorado safe? But it goes back to like you control your own fate. Like if you tune out the outside noise and you focus on what you can do well for yourself and how you can elevate your teammates that are here right now, I think that has an outcome that is undeniable. Like, it's hard then to imagine them just shipping you out. Just kidding, it increases your trade value. Kidding, I'm kidding. All right. I don't want to end it on a bad note. If you're the front office, are you still going out and trying to make some moves ahead of the deadline, or are the Avs cooked?
They're not cooked. I mean, they're gonna go try to make more moves. I mean, as a front office, that's what you have to do in this situation. I think that there's no way that they don't make another move. There needs to be at least one other move that they make before the deadline that addresses something that has to do with the depth situation.
I agree. I even just look at like Valimaki on waivers if they wanted to make an attempt to claim him and bring him in as part of the D group, and they didn't. And all the other NHL teams passed on him, right? One, it tells me there's more to that than we fully realize, but also I don't think that they're going to make a move just for the sake of making one. I think like seeing inaction there actually leads me to believe more so that they're going to make a move and it's just going to be more intentional in an alignment with what they're looking for specifically. I fully agree. I don't think they're close to done. I have these teams rattling around in my head that I could see them working with. And so I don't think it's close to finish.
Mm-mm.
And Anytime you introduce something new, though, it's a little bit of a gamble and there's an adjustment period. So there really isn't going to be a part of this year where the Avs are in the clear or safe or feeling really great and comfortable, just more comfortable than the place we're in now.
Yeah. I always tell myself to trust our front office because I mean, every single time that they make any sort of move, it's worked out better in our favor. So I think they know what the issues that they have to address, and they know how they're potentially gonna fix it and what moves they're gonna make.
It's true, 'cause there've been some moves that were more neutral, it, like, didn't hurt the team in any way, like Lars Eller, and I look at the ones that didn't necessarily work, and they're not necessarily trades, but just, like, the addition of Johansson and Tatar, and they moved on from those things quickly.
Yeah.
This has been a front office that moves swiftly to exit places of discomfort as quickly as possible. So,
Yes.
I'm in discomfort right now, I'll eat some more cookies, it will be fine, but
I think
that's why
you're just hangry. You're not
I
you're
think
not
I'm
you
just
when you're
hungry.
hungry.
I think that's all this really is. The Avs are fine, guys, I'm just hungry.
Yeah. That's how I feel, honestly, at this point.
Alright, let's transition to our burn book segment and end this on a little bit more of a positive note too. I think this is a funny one just around conversations that we're having today because I really like this Avs group. I think they're a lot of really nice guys.
Yeah.
And there's some guys that I don't think are very nice, and one of them is Jamie Benn. And he's going in the burn book today. That little weirdo probably should have been here day one.
That little weirdo. Such a good way to I was just telling Megan, last year during the playoffs, I had to go and get interviews from the opposing team's locker room, and when we played Dallas, the person that most of the media talked to was Jamie Benn, and he gave me such a bad vibe. That is probably the biggest reason I'm putting him in the burn book. So if that's my biggest reason, think about all of the other reasons that we're putting him in here too.
It's true. Like, okay, this is in the immediate why he's in my burn book, but over the Dallas series this past summer, he clipped Taves in the playoffs.
How dare he?
And I hated it. And
Yeah.
Josh Manson fought him at a different point, and I included that photo because he deserved it. But he also earlier this year, like in January, he took his stick and he rammed it up Cale Makar's legs. First of all, nicest guy on the
Oh.
planet. How dare you?
How dare you?
And it's just weirdo behavior. And this is strictly on ice. We haven't even gotten to the weirdo off ice.
Wasn't there last year, maybe it was last year, where he had like a knee on knee with MacKinnon? MacKinnon was like really, really slow to get up.
Was it Ben?
I think so. I don't want to just say things that are wrong, but I would totally think that Jamie Benn would do something like that. But everybody was MacKinnon was so slow to get up, it was almost like people were getting scared that he might be injured from something like that.
Who hurt you? Let's see. Who did this? McKinnon, knee. Florida.
I think it was last year. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
Maybe I shouldn't have just put that out there with
But I'll wait for some of this too for the next segment that we do. But I'll round it out with this. Jamie Benn is a weirdo. There was information floating around the internet one time, and it's not what you think. That I don't even care about. This I care about. He was following these Instagram accounts called Women Hurting Themselves. And I'm sure you've maybe heard of the content like Women on Elevated Surfaces. And it's just like women who are drunk falling off of tables that they've gotten on. It's like that, but worse because it's just broadly women getting hurt. And he publicly followed these weird accounts, and that's why he's a certified weirdo.
Oh my God, Jamie Benn. You deserve to be here.
So when you felt like weird vibes in the locker room and you're like, am I safe? Maybe not.
Right.
He probably wanted to see you get hurt.
He probably did want to see me trip and fall in the locker room. How
He would
dare
have loved it.
You know what, Jamie Benn? You're in the burn book and you're never getting out.
You're never getting out.
You're never leaving. You're staying in there for life.
Full-time resident in our burn book. All right. Next question though.
Yes.
Your segment. Do I hate him or is he just not on my team?
Yes.
Would you like Jamie Benn on the Avs?
No. That is a player that I just straight up would not like to have on the Avs. Well, and in a way that he is a good player. Yes. I mean, He played for Dallas. I think he was a good fit for a Dallas team. He would not fit with the Avs.
Well, no. I don't think. Okay, I was going to be really mean right off the bat.
Do it.
Avs already have a captain,
Mhm.
and I just don't think many in the league can touch Landeskog's captaincy in what they do, what they bring. But Jamie Benn certainly doesn't even come close in terms of what a Landeskog adds. I just don't think Jamie Benn adds that I don't feel that value because I've had a taste of the good life. Like, I know what a great captain looks like on the Colorado Avalanche, that there's just nothing really new Jamie Benn could show me. But, you know, what kind of captain gets suspended in the Western Conference Final for cross-checking Vegas's captain? Like, that's just not very captainly of you. Now you're not available to your team in a Western Conference Final for a couple games. I don't think that's great leadership. In my opinion, Jamie Benn, the production is there. You know, this is obviously a top 6 player still in this league. That's hard to contest with. But he's on the last year, I think, of his 9.5 AAV contract. And I just feel like his numbers are like Val Nichushkin numbers. And look, I'm not going to pretend like Val Nichushkin has been the easiest experience either. But you get the production when Val's in the lineup and you can count on it for 6.125, that I'm still not seeing the value of Jamie Benn in the Avs lineup. It's like he's Brad Marchand, but less honest about it. And something about that makes me dislike him more. At least Marchand knows who he is and he owns it.
Exactly. He owns it. And I realized as I was talking about Jamie Benn, I was talking in past tense. Like, he was like dead. Like, we put him in the burn book and now he's completely gone. I was like, he was all of these things. So I didn't mean to do that, but old. Weird. So those are the reasons why he's going in the burn book and never getting out.
He's trapped in there, because there's a possibility we'll take people out. Like, okay, we were just mad and we ate some
We were just hungry. Yes.
We're fine now.
Just needed some Girl Scout cookies.
But Jamie Benn, you're never getting out.
Never.
All right, you guys, that's going to do it for our show today. Honestly, it feels like it's been a roller coaster. Like, we were messing with Chloe's mic before the show because it kind of felt like a restraint bar on a roller coaster. So this has definitely felt like a ride. Thank you for coming along for the journey.
Woo!
We'll be back on Friday with another off-ice show. We've got some cool content planned this week. And of course, back tomorrow with some game day coverage. Avs versus New Jersey Devils for the first in a 6-game homestand. And boy, do they have some work to do.
Oh my gosh. I'm interested to see how this works out.
Me too. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. We'll catch you next time.
Bye!